Hello everyone, and welcome to Relaunch Week. This week I am relaunching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel, and we're going to be having a video every day this week to mark the occasion. And I thought I would start off Monday with the first of the week's videos to answer a question that has been asked of me so many times. Many of you grew older waiting for me to address it, and I have finally decided to do so. If you haven't guessed what that question is, some of you who've watched my channel and been viewers over the years will know by looking at what you see in front of you here. The question has always been, what is the best sewing machine oil? What is sewing machine oil? And, why do I need to use it? What do I need to use for my machine? And questions of this kind. And I have tried to address it here and there, but I wanted to finally just give my perspective on what that is. And for those of you who are new to the channel, this channel was started 10 years ago this year. And 12 years ago is when I started restoring vintage sewing machines. And I have not stopped going ever since. And this year, as I'm relaunching the channel, there is a new model so that you can help support the channel. Please consider supporting it through the Buy Me a Coffee link. But the question has come to me so many times, and I always knew that the answer to this question is not something I can just immediately tell someone in a comment. It's more important than that. And I've always had machines to focus on. I've made so many videos, and it's time. And I thought, okay, for those of you who didn't grow too old waiting for this, here's what I want to share with you about sewing machine oil. And in order to tell you what sewing machine oil is, I have to tell you what it is not. And although this is an easy topic to Google, I still get people who ask me what it is because they hear things. We have a world of information, and sometimes we are overloaded with it, and we have to sift through all the weeds to figure out what it is and what it is not. So before I tell you what sewing machine oil is, I want to tell you what it isn't, because this is part of the problem. So many people have different ideas about what they should be using, and we're going to talk about that. Now, I'm going to start over here on the left. And all of the products that you see here, I have used in one form or another on restoring and waking up, as I like to say, old sewing machines that often have gone years without service. So these are different products that can be useful, but not for lubricating your sewing machine to actually use it for sewing. You have to be able to discern those differences, and I think that's where some of the confusion comes from. You'll see people like me saying, well, put this here and use this and use that. But that's not for lubricating the moving parts, okay? All of these products have a very good purpose. If you have a machine that doesn't need waking up, if your machine's running fine and you just need to add oil, you really don't need any of these products, to be honest, but except for maybe one of them. Now, so we'll start over here on the left, and I'll tell you what it is not. Many of you who've seen my channel and watched videos, you may have seen me using a product like this. It is called valve oil. Valve oil is made up of machine oil, okay? And that machine oil is mixed with a light solvent, and that makes it thin. And you can see that, sewing machine oil doesn't actually wiggle around this quickly. This is a thin product, and I use it for cleaning and helping to get parts moving. It is not what you normally use for a sewing machine. Do not use this in place of sewing machine oil. Okay, that is off the table. Okay, next we have an assortment, and there are other brands, right? Oh, by the way, I should mention to you, this right here is a bottle of sewing machine oil, and I want to kind of put that in front here, and this will be one of the last things we talk about. So notice what you see here. It says 3-in-1 penetrant. Sometimes you'll see a can that it might actually look like this old school can here. It's a very old Singer can, but that's a different product. It'll say 3-in-1 oil, and people will say, well, you should use 3-in-1 oil. 3-in-1 oil, whether it comes in a spray can or in a drip can, a little can like that, is a product that is used to help unstick things, right? So I use this, for example, you can get a rusty padlock loose, things like that. And WD-40, which is probably one of the most known brands in the world, it again is used for, and when you read the instruction, multi-use product, what it is doing is, or what it promises to do, is again get things moving. Okay, not just locks, but you can use it to get into things that aren't moving and to try to get them moving again. And this is like the family size that I got here on this here, and I use it for all sorts of things. You find this in hardware stores. You won't necessarily find it in a sewing store. Again, if you are not restoring or dealing with an old sewing machine that is either stuck or semi-stuck, or it's it's running fine, you don't need this product. Not for your sewing machine. Do not put it in your sewing machine. Do not put the 3-in-1 penetrant. Let's take those off the table. Now, Liquid Wrench and PB Blaster are yet more brands of what we call penetrants. Now, a penetrant is called that because, again, there is some form of petroleum distillate, which is a fancy way of saying there is an oil in here mixed with a solvent. And they're very thin, and they are used in a similar way that the 3-in-1 penetrant I just took off the table. The Liquid Wrench is a little stinkier, and I believe the PB Blaster is as well. Liquid Wrench has kerosene in it, okay? But again, these are used, Liquid Wrench, it's the name actually indicates what it's for. PB Blaster, again, many brands of these products, they have different formulations. They're designed to work the same. Some of you have your favorites, and maybe you like one better than the other. Liquid Wrench is a great one, but it's very stinky, and the stink doesn't go away quickly. So all of you who've watched my channel videos, you know, as I always say, be very careful about what you use indoors. We all have different levels of sensitivity, and you really, do you want anything like Liquid Wrench to be absorbed, the stink of it to be absorbed into your furniture upholstery? I think not. So again, great products to help unlock frozen parts in a sewing machine. But again, these are best used other than other areas around the house that many of you use these products for. With sewing machines, I only need these occasionally when something is stuck. Never use any of these to lubricate your machine. It is not a lubricating product. Now, what do we got here? Now this giant bottle, it says SAE 30. This is a general purpose non-detergent oil. I found this in the motor oil section, and I didn't have a quart of motor oil, but this is enough of a representation to show you what I mean. You will hear people tell you, well, you don't need that. What you need is some good SAE, or you need 530 weight motor oil, and that'll take care of your sewing machine. No, it will not. Do not put this in your sewing machine. Please do not put this in your sewing machine. I never have. The only time you have ever seen me use this product was when I took 1 or 2 drops to liquefy old grease in a bearing in a motor. This is, and it literally, there's just one motor I even use this on, and it's used on a Singer Slant-O-Matic motor, and only in one place on that motor. Do not put it on your motor unless you watch the video and you know what I'm talking about. Please do not put motor oil. Motor oils are great for car engines and other types of engines. They do not work in sewing machines. You will be very unhappy with the results if you do it. I don't care how much marketing, and they say, well, if it's great for the car, it should. No, just stop yourself. Don't do it. Please don't do it. You'll be very unhappy with the result. Let's take that off the table. Now, what have we got here? I'm going to talk a little bit about this one. Now, this is a vintage can of Singer sewing machine. It was 30 cents. That alone tells you it's vintage, right? So, sewing machine oil will be sold under different brands. Some sewing companies, many of them, used to brand all kinds of things because you're like, oh, I'm in the sewing shop. You're in a sewing dealer in 1955, and you need oil for your machine. Well, we have it, and it's Singer oil. It's good for a Singer machine. Well, that's just marketing hoo-ha. You don't have to have a specific brand of sewing machine oil. Okay, so don't be worried that, oh, well, if I have a Bernina, I can't use Singer oil. First of all, you might see machine branded oil today, but it's not as common as it once was, because again, they used to have all kinds of things they needed to upsell to help with the profits of the dealership. So this was sewing machine oil. but it's branded. One other thing to say here. If you have sewing machine oil that looks yellow, I had so you're going to see some of that oil. Do you see how it has a light amber color? That tells you that it is oxidized. Now oil, sewing machine oil, does not thicken or oxidize overnight. It takes decades, but I think that that bottle is decades old. Do not use old sewing oil, okay? I'm not saying it won't lubricate, but now you are taking oil that has lost some of its properties. It may be thicker. Just, it's not worth it. Sewing machine oil is not that expensive. Do not do that. Now, if you keep the can as a sort of a fun historical reference, I love vintage stuff. So I'm not saying, throw the can away. In fact, people collect these things. There are people who collect all sorts of paraphernalia that went along with sewing in going back decades. So I'm not saying trash this. I'm saying do not put this in your machine. Okay. So you may have this on display or do with it what you will. Again, don't throw it out. Someone may pay you for it, but do not put this in your machine. It's too old. Okay. Now, what does that leave us with? Finally, after I've been telling you what it is not, I'm going to tell you what it is. Now, sewing machine oil is a petroleum product. And it is in the petroleum industry, they don't call it sewing machine oil. It is often called white oil, okay? Now, white doesn't mean literally the color white. In the petroleum industry, they use terms differently than we would for saying, oh, I have white dishes. No, not the color white. White meaning it has been extremely and very highly refined. Now, this product is one of the most refined versions of petroleum you can get. And many of you have had experience with sewing machine oil long before you ever used a sewing machine, but you may not have known it. It's the same thing, okay? Now, this is a bottle of oil, and on the ingredients, it says, I don't know if that will pick up on the cam. I'll try to bring it closer to you. It reads, ingredients, it says, paraffinum liquidum. And I guess is that Latin? Some of you who know Latin, help me with that. It says paraffinum liquidum. Now, this is not paraffin oil. It is not the oil that you put in a tiki torch when you're barbecuing in the summer. That is a fancy way of saying something that many of you actually do know. And we use the term at the consumer level, mineral oil. Now, mineral oil, that will not be a strange product to many of you, and you have used it in many ways. Now, if you go into a pharmacy, to a drugstore, you will see mineral oil in two places. The first place you're going to find that is in the area of skin products. Okay, so there are products that are used for skin, and some people will just buy mineral oil and they'll rub it on their skin. Okay, now they also have a thicker version. So the thin one will say light, and I don't know if the other one says heavy or just says mineral oil, and that product is used as a digestive aid. You will find it in the laxative section. I do not recommend taking laxatives, and I sure as heck don't recommend drinking mineral oil, but it's there. It's in that part of the pharmacy. Many drugstores still have a little tiny section where you find what I call old school stuff, okay? Not just necessarily herbs, but you'll see things like castor oil and witch hazel and isopropyl alcohol. That's often in the area where you find it, things you put on your skin. Now, I don't know if many of you know this, you might. This particular bottle is not a bottle of mineral oil. When you look for sewing machine oil, a lot of sewing stores no longer carry it because a lot of modern sewing machines rarely, if ever, use it. And when you take your modern plastic wonder sewing machine in to be serviced, they will often add oil in there are a few places in modern machines that need sewing machine oil or allow you to put oil. And a lot of that has to do with the area of the bobbin race, the shuttle area of the machine where your bobbin case attaches. And even there, it's very limited. Most modern machines don't allow you access. Whatever they do, they do it at the factory. They seal up the machine, sadly. Now, an example of a brand that I seem to recall was a brand called White Lily, right? But that's actually a cute way of saying it's actually white oil. Again, white is a term that the petroleum oil industry uses to talk about products like this. Now, there are different grades of this, okay? Some mineral oils are produced and they're not considered, safe for the skin or safe for laxatives. I have no interest in having any mineral oil in my body, so please don't put that in your body. But this is something that, again, all of you or many of you know what mineral oil is, and mineral oil is sewing machine oil. But it's called, when you go to buy it online, most of you will buy your sewing machine oil online because it's hard to find at retail sometimes, and it'll say sewing machine oil and doesn't really tell you anything else. Now, I showed you this. Again, paraffinum liquidum is just I think it's a Latin way of saying not paraffin oil, but mineral oil. And this particular one I found in a different area of the drugstore. And it was on that one. Some of you may remember the smell of what's called baby oil. This one doesn't, thankfully, have a smell. It doesn't have a fake perfume. It's unscented. People used to put baby oil on babies to keep their skin from getting chapped and dry. I think today a lot of people use products that are a little more more friendly. They're more plant-based as opposed to putting mineral oil. But some people may still do this. But I looked at this one day and I realized, what am I looking at? I'm looking at mineral oil, also known as sewing machine oil. Now, you don't have to go to this aisle, and be careful because a lot of baby oil has a perfume, and that perfume is pretty strong, and not all of you like perfumes, and you may not want your sewing machine to smell like baby oil. But this is an unscented version, and I basically can get this. I can get mineral oil. Now, is there a difference? When I was talking about the mineral oils earlier, I said light versus heavy. Why would you use one or the other? The only reason that you would use the lighter oil is that both of them, all of these products, mineral oil, light and heavy, the baby oil, unscented again, or sewing machine oil if it's branded, all of those terms really refer to the same thing, the same product. They're just packaging it differently, okay? So if you go to buy sewing machine oil and you buy a bottle this size, you might pay, I don't know, $8, $9 Canadian, or I don't know what it costs in the US. I haven't looked lately. So you can get a lot more of that oil by buying mineral oil, or in this case, mineral oil repackaged as baby oil. Now, the other thing to remind you, for most of you, it could take you, potentially, depending on how much sewing you do, because as I've told all of you, and when it comes to how often you oil your machine, that really is determined by how much sewing you do. The more sewing you do, the more often you need to oil the machine. If you're an occasional sewer, it could take you a couple of years or more or longer to go through just this little bottle, because you put in 1 drop at a time. Now, why do I buy mineral oil or sewing machine oil in such large containers like that? Mineral oil comes in bottles about the same size. You can get big and small bottles. I do that because I go through a lot more sewing machine oil than all of you who are sewers. Those of you who like to restore sewing machines, you're probably like me. I go through a lot more of this oil because I'm having to, when I wake machines up, they are sometimes so bone dry. After I get the parts moving, I have to give them more than 1 drop of oil just to get the lubrication system, priming the pump is a sort of way to say that, right? So that is it. It is that simple. Now, remember when I was showing you all the products and I said, what is not sewing machine oil? I did that, but there's something else to share with you. There are products that are sold. You might see a product, and I think I've tried it before, called, you'll see products that are sold for other purposes. They sell it a lot of times in the bicycle shops of all places, called Tri-Flow. Tri-Flow oil is a machine oil, but then they add other ingredients to it. primarily PTFE or Teflon. I don't use that product. I've tried it and I did not care for the smell. And you do not need Teflon to make your sewing machine oil be lubricated. Sewing machines have functioned beautifully with sewing machine oil, again, mineral oil, for ever since they were invented, and they still do. Okay? You don't need Triflow for your machine to run. If you're going to pay all that extra money for Triflow, you don't need it, essentially. Okay? There's another term out there. There's one more term out there that I see people asking questions about. Well, okay, I don't need the branded oil. Remember I told you, it doesn't need to say Singer or Pfaff or Bernina. Just get sewing machine oil. And then people say, well, I saw something that said it was synthetic. Synthetic sewing machine oil is sewing machine oil. The reason that term synthetic is used, and it's sort of true but unnecessary, when you take an oil and you refine it, and you really, really refine it, and you put it through so many processes, sewing machine oil is literally one of the most refined versions of petroleum oil you can ever find. So in the motor oil industry, and I know this because I service my own car, I do my own oil changes just because I'm like that. I could pay someone to do it, but I prefer to do it myself. That's just me. You may not be in that camp, and that's fine. Whenever you look at the difference between traditional motor oil and synthetic, they're all petroleum. When someone says synthetic, well, what is it made from? It's not made from unicorns, right? It's not made from unicorn tears. It is made from petroleum, and they start with it, and they keep putting it through more and more processing to make it more and more refined, okay? And that's one of the reasons it costs more, because, and I'm referring again to motor oil in that case, one of the reasons it costs more is because the processing is more involved. So when you have plain old, any brand, if it says sewing machine oil, okay, the only other thing you might see online is something that people who do clocks and I was about to say a watchmaker, people who service traditional analog watches like a jeweler, and or people who do traditional clocks. I have a German, it's not making any chimes right now. It has a Westminster chime. They will use something very similar to this. What is watch oil? It's essentially an even thinner version of this, because remember, you're dealing with really small moving parts, and so you want the viscosity to be even lower, and that's a very specialized product. And no, you do not need that, because your sewing machine is not built on the same scale as the moving parts that need to be lubricated on a clock, on many clocks, and on watches. So, after I have shared all of this with you all we are now at 23 minutes, when you see something that says sewing machine oil, it is already synthetic. This is one of the most synthetic products in the petroleum industry. So if someone tells you that they have synthetic sewing machine oil, it's like telling you we have water that is wet. It is a redundant statement. There's nothing wrong with it. They're not being dishonest, but it's like saying that spinach has no cholesterol in it, right? It doesn't. It's irrelevant, right? It's a non sequitur, if you want to use a fancy, is that a French word? Anyway, everyone, I appreciate you spending this much time to listen to me talk about something that for many of us is pretty important. And I'm happy to report to you that the answer is a simple one. To make sure that you're putting the right thing in your sewing machine, whether it is vintage or if you are able to put any oil in your new machine with limited access, just use something that says sewing machine oil and you will be fine. If you decide you want to pay less per ounce for that and you want to buy a lot, I don't think you need a giant bottle of mineral oil, because it could sit there for a decade before you go through it. So, right? And a decade is not going to hurt I don't think it's going to, thicken up or go rancid too quickly. But honestly, get yourself a bottle, a compact bottle that says sewing machine oil, and carry on, because that is it. That literally, it is that simple. None of the fancy branding, none of the fancy ingredients. You do not need Triflow. You do not need anything that says synthetic. all you need is sewing machine oil, because it is mineral oil. If you always wondered, well, what is this? What is that? It's mineral oil. What we all know, that we've known all of our lives. And I just thought I would make this video, even though I know some of you maybe you found it already, I don't know. But you can look up on places like Wiki. These are quick searches, quick, simple searches on Google. But I wanted to share this with you because I wanted to talk about it in the context of sewing machines. Sometimes the simplest, quickest thing is actually the answer, and in this case it is. So, can any of you guess what tomorrow's video is going to be? The Tuesday video? Well, if you thought this was exciting, just wait till you see what the next video is going to be, and it is still in the same general topic of lubrication. And some of you have asked me about this as well. Stay tuned and tune in tomorrow, and I will be posting that video. And again, there will be a video every day this week.